Good afternoon, evening, I should say, rather, to everyone who is at our Careers Day for this evening. I'm very pleased to see you all here. Welcome to our first Careers Day event for this year. We're very excited that everyone is here. Careers Day, it aims to bring awareness to different fields in tech and provide an informal guide for how students and professionals can chart their own course in these fields or roles. And I'm very pleased to mention that Careers Day is only one of several events organized by the Jamaica developers community. So to those of you guys who are not new and to those who are new, the community is one of creative thinkers, thought leaders, and innovators who love working together to solve common problems. We're transforming the Caribbean community from a consumer to a producer of technology. I'm very pleased to shout out our sponsors, Asub Limited, Vertis Technologies Solutions Limited, and Particular Presence Technologies Limited. If I forgot to mention my name is Jada Ferguson, and I am currently the communications officer for the Jamaica developers community. And this evening, our speaker is Mr. Emar Morrison. Now, Mr. Morrison has worked in the technology sector for 7 years and is currently the Senior Database Administrator at Fujitsu Consulting Canada. We're so excited that he's here. Guys, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat section while the presentation is going on. And we do ask that you receive Mr. Morrison by using your clap hands reactions as he begins his presentation. So Mr. Morrison, over to you.
Hi Jada, good afternoon all. Thanks for having me today to present to these future DBAs. I know all of you will become DBAs at the end of this presentation. So to add to what Jada has said before, I've worked in the capacity of a database administrator for the last 6.5 to 7 years almost. And as a database administrator, I know the importance of testing before production. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we're still hearing you. You can go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Right, as I was saying, I know the importance of testing before moving to production. How do you become a database administrator? Well, a database administrator is responsible for managing and maintaining a database, right? A typical role would include install and configure database server like a SQL server, your Oracle, your Postgres database servers. I'll do all of that. The next thing you normally do as a database administrator is manage permissions to your database. You start out with your least privilege and ensure that you only give permissions to who need access to your database. And one of the most important things as a database administrator is to ensure you can back up a database and restore your database. You don't want, when you're on the job and somebody said, well, something goes wrong in production, a database got corrupted, a table got corrupted, and they ask you, do you have a backup? And your answer is gonna be no, right there and then. That can literally be your last day on the job. So to be able to perform backups and restore, very, very important. Another thing you do as a database administrator is that you do performance tuning, right? So you want to ensure that your database is performing at its optimal level. Sorry. When it comes on to performance tuning, again, you have to tune queries and ensure they are performing the best. You are getting the best time from the queries. They are using the best execution plan available. And the other thing that you do as a database administrator is you migrate databases from one server to another, or from like an on-premise database to a cloud. Those are things that you do on a day-to-day basis. And very, very important as well, you have to be able to monitor your database. So you want to ensure that you are informed when you have CPU alerts, high memory alerts, very high IO, and all of those things. And as developers, you're going to work with database administrators a lot. And as part of the database administrator role, they would normally do a little bit of application support to support the application that is connected to the database they are working with. Now, in order to become a database administrator, you're going to need a bachelor's of science in computing or information technology or computer science. Now, how I got started as a database administrator. When I graduated UTech in 2015 and I started applying for jobs, I realized that I couldn't really do anything that are on these job descriptions. So what I started to do then is that I started to look at the job descriptions, and the skills that I don't have, I went and learned them on my own. So that's an approach you can take whenever you leave college, right? And to supplement your degree, you can also pursue certifications like as your database administrator associate certificate from Microsoft, Oracle database administrator certificate from Oracle, or AWS certified database specialty certificate from AWS. The first two are cloud specific, and the second one is both on-premise and cloud. So when you graduate, you have to keep on learning and develop your skills even before you get the job. You have to start separating yourself from the other graduates, because remember, you guys all come out with the same bachelor's degree. When you get an interview, how are you going to separate yourself from the other candidates? Because I remember when I got my first interview, I looked to my left, looked to my right in the interview room waiting. There were other college graduates who I was in class with, but one thing I know for sure then, I had skills they didn't have. So that right there and then, I know I had a higher probability of landing a job at the job as a database administrator. So what are some of the skills required to become a DBA while you're a database administrator? You have to be level-headed in a crisis, like a server will go down, and you have to keep calm and work your way through the pressure and everything that is happening around you. You can't crack under pressure. You have to be cool, calm, and collective while you're getting your job done. You have to be good at problem solving and troubleshooting. Like a lot of the times, like most of the times, things will be going smooth, but whenever an issue arises, you have to be able to troubleshoot and resolve that issue quickly. Another key thing, patience. You'll be working with vendors from all over, depending on the organization. You're going to be working with internal staff. Sometimes you're running some processes that may fail, and like, for instance, a large database like 8 terabyte will take, say, 8 hours to do a restore, right? You're in the middle of your restore, fail. You now have to go ahead and start all over. So you have to have patience, great interpersonal expertise. You have to be good with everybody you work with. Like, it's a role that you interact with almost everybody in the organization. what you do on a day-to-day basis will impact majority of the employees, again, depending on the organization. Another thing with database is that you have to pay close attention to what you're doing. Key attention to details, very important. One simple mistake can cost the company millions and impact thousands of customers at any given time. So those are some key skills you have to have as a database administrator. Is database administration for you? One of the pros of being a database administrator is that, like, you really don't have to go in office to do any type of task. Like, you can be in the United States and work for a Jamaican company. Likewise, you can be in Jamaica, work for a company in the States. That's one of the biggest pros of being a database administrator in this age. It exposes you to a lot of technologies. So you might be working with databases, for example, Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle. But at the end of the day, there will be different projects coming on board from time to time within the organization, and they use various technologies. So, for example, you may be used to a SQL Server, but your company is now moving to Azure or AWS. Then you being in the capacity of a database administrator now will get exposure to both Azure or AWS. It exposes you to automation technologies like Ansible, Azure automation pipeline, all of those fancy stuff. It's not just straight database. In this role, you'll be like a jack of all trade, and that is good. You'll be developing a lot of skills that you can use in other areas of the business. Pro, again, above average salary. So for a database administrator, your basic salary can be between anywhere from like $250,000 to 500,000 Jamaican dollars. And the benefits that come with that will vary from company to company. So you can get like an on-call allowance, a motor vehicle upkeep, you will get insurance, right? So for example, if you work with a company like NCB, then one of your benefits might be that you get a better rate for taking out like a car loan, right? Networking again. That's a big pro of being a database administrator, because you work with various consultants from all over the world, right? It gives you connection to different types of people, and you can also build relationship with these folks that you work with, and then from there, one thing can lead to the next. A database in Jamaica is the same database in the United States. So you can get the Jamaican experience, and then you can transfer that to another country. For example, I was a database administrator at JPS. A database in JPS will be a database in NCB, right? So my skills in JPS can be easily transferred to NCB, but what will be different is their business processes. So you'll then have to go and learn their processes, which should be challenging because they will follow, to an extent, follow the same concepts. So on the downside of being a database administrator, it can be a stressful job sometimes, like server down, stress. Customers can't access the application, stress. So those things can cause it to be stressful sometimes, but you have to know how to deal with that. And from time to time, you'll get used to how to manage it. A downside to being a database administrator, again, if you love your holidays, like depending on the organization, you may not get holidays sometime, because those are the times when companies normally do maintenance and database administrator will be there supporting that maintenance. You may get a phone call in the middle of the night. My server is down, my application is down. You have to get up out of your bed, stop what you're doing, and try to resolve that issue. One of the challenges I found with being a database, getting a database administrator job is that to get the job fresh out of college can be a bit difficult because employers are looking for individuals with at least 3 years experience in most cases. But you just leaving college, you don't really have any form of experience. So it can be a little bit difficult to get a database administrator job fresh out of college. But what I would encourage individuals to do is start doing the certifications, start installing the servers on their laptops wherever they can, and practice. So when you show up on an interview now, you know what you're about and you know what value you can bring to the table already. And who wouldn't want who wouldn't want to hire an individual who take the initiative to go out of the way to start learning skills that they didn't have? Opportunities can be rare because I realize that when I see like 10 jobs for say an application developer, I will see only one for database administrators. So those are some of the downside I see for database administrators. So that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Yes, there's some question in the chat. Were you Craig asks, Cargill, sorry. Were you in a developer position before you get into database, and then you followed up? What was the transition like?
Oh, so for me, I started as a application administrator, and while in that application administrator role, I started building out dashboards, and from there, I expressed my interest in becoming a database administrator. And little by little, I was given the smaller database task until I fully transitioned into the role.
Okay, cool. And he has a couple of other follow-up questions. How good would my math skills have to be? For me, I don't necessarily think you need like strong math skill, but Mr. Morrison, what do you think about how good your math skill have to be a DBA?
You don't need math any at all.
Yeah.
None at all.
What would you say the soft skills that one would need, or even pattern recognition of being a very skilled or competent DBA?
Soft skills, excellent communication skills, and person skills. Like you have to be able to deal with people, don't get easily frustrated, and you should be good.
Okay, cool. There's a follow-up question by Mr. White. How does managed services in the cloud impact the core roles and responsibilities of DBAs?
How does it impact what?
The core roles, ROLES, and responsibilities of DBA.
So from experience, it doesn't really impact it much. It doesn't change a lot because the database on-prem is the same database and server. You might do things a little bit different in terms of how you grant permissions, but it remains pretty much the same workload. So if you move a database from on-prem now to the cloud, it doesn't change your workload in any way based on my experience thus far.
Okay. I think he's referring to, for example, Digital Ocean managed database, or AWS has their own managed databases, which kind of really some of the roles and responsibilities that you would need to, like, for example, set up automatic backup for the database or auto scaling, because those managed services tend to come with all of that. How does, like, those type of managed database system impact, your responsibilities?
Oh, that way. Oh, it really impacts it a lot. So, for example, right? You with an on-premise SQL server, again, you'd have to manage the OS to an extent like do patching. With an Azure database or AWS SQL server, you don't have to do anything like that. In terms of
Um, um,
right,
Mr. Morris? Oh,
right. I'm still here. So you don't have to do
Morrison.
anything like that. But on the other side, it also bringing where you have to learn additional skills, right? So for example, with Azure again, SQL Server, you would have like a SQL Server on premise where you know how to create jobs and stuff. With Azure data with the Azure SQL managed database, you now have to learn additional skills like a little PowerShell. You have to learn how to create like runbooks. So you have to develop some additional skills as well to transfer to the cloud side.
Okay. Noted. What about, for example, I know that this is kind of different from what a DBA is supposed to be in charge of, but what about, for example, the performance of the database in terms of the queries and so forth? Do you tend to touch on, like, query performance and how to optimize, like, joins and so forth, or that's something DBAs tend not to touch at all and mostly geared towards the system performance and backups?
So great question. That's a core role of a database administrator. You have to tune queries. You have to create indexes, right? You have to look at a query and see if it is written in the most optimal manner. So those things you have to do those as well. But with some of the cloud technologies now, like I have a lot of experience now with Azure, you'll get recommendations from the query store, which you can also apply, and then you can use it to select the best plan for your query.
Noted with thanks. There are a couple of other questions in the chat. Jasmine asks, do you work locally or abroad?
I was working locally, but now I work in Canada with Fujitsu Consulting.
Okay. All right. I think the question was geared towards more if you work remotely, but yeah, given what you said,
Fully remote.
definitely full remote. All right. Ryan, I'm still in good presentation. Is there any certification you would recommend? Yeah.
Certifications. For starters, I would definitely recommend it's been phased out, the MCSA, Microsoft Certified DBA certificate, but now you have the Azure Database Administrator Associate. I would recommend that one because, to the looks of things, I feel like sooner or later it will just be cloud. So they have retired the older certificate. And for more fun, or Oracle Certified Professional. But once you learn one database, you can easily transfer the skills to another database.
Okay. All right. Noted. Well, I have another question, and this geared towards what are some of the basic mistakes you tend to see a lot of new beginners in DBA tend to do. For example, simple hosting the database server on the same server that the application is on. It's recommended to host it separately because database server tend to take up a lot of resources, memory and CPU usage. So what are some common mistakes that you tend to see novice tend to do, and what are some best practice you want to share with the group?
So that's definitely great question again. That's definitely one of the first and one of the biggest one. Same using the same server to host your application and database. That's a no-no. Another one is having your backups on the same server. What if your server go down and you need to restore your database? What if your server can't come back online? Your server is gone, your database is gone. Another common mistake is that making changes in production without necessarily doing a backup. So you might have a database backup, but you don't do a table backup or a procedure backup or whatever object you're changing. You don't do a backup of that object. It is easier to restore an object than to restore an entire backup. In terms of other mistakes I would see other individuals make, let me see, can't recall much, because most of the times the persons I work with are actually seniors.
Okay, noted. Uh, from my side, yeah, you touch on the main ones that I can think of. The others is geared towards the coding side, like the type of joins where I see developers do, or even SQL developer. Well, let me ask you a question. Database normalization, and this is going into a bit of, technical terminologies. So with database optimization with normal forms, what would you recommend, for example, novice, or how deep down in normalization one should tend to go? And I know that this is a very subjective question. It all depends. But normalization, what's your normal approach towards normalizing a database, or recommending how they should normalize the database? And of course, you can give example like a type of application, why you should normalize it for that type of application versus another.
So in terms of normalization, as a database administrator, we don't normally do database development, and the normalization would come more from the application developer or database developer, if one is in-house, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend going to third normal form, because I've seen databases without any form of normalization. It's just like a big heap. And it's good to maintain relationship in your databases so you know which table connect with which one. So you can easily bring up like a database diagram, which will help you in terms of like building out your queries.
Okay. All right. Noted. Noted. All right. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Are there any other question in the chat? I don't see any. Go ahead.
I'm not sure you read this one. With Mr. White had a lot of the core DBA responsibilities are being pried away from our hands with introduction of cloud. Not sure if you guys wanted to comment on that one.
I think we touched on it earlier in the conversation, in especially with the core roles and responsibilities of DBA. But I guess, Mr. Morrison, if you have anything else to add, you can go ahead.
You said the roles are being taken away, if I'm getting that correctly.
Yes, pride away.
Kind of away. I think it pretty much remains the same from my experience because I still have to do all the things that comes with database administration, the granting of rules, the auditing, the backups and restore, and then you have the database tuning, right? Because one thing I realized, a developer will write a query, but then a database administrator will look at the query different. A database administrator will see where there's room for improvement, while a developer just want to get the query working. So we still do the core stuff as database administrator. What the managed services take away from us though is more of the OS stuff that we would normally do.
Okay, noted. I do have one more. Well, there's two additional questions. Let me address those two. So someone, uh, Andrew asks, what is the most popular database used in production? And then the follow-up question, what do you think about Postgres database? But yes, going with the first, what is the most popular database used in production? Do you have any idea about that? I think it's a quick Google search, but your thoughts on that?
So, sorry, for a large enterprise system, I tend to realize that organization or most of the applications uses Oracle, but a large majority of the applications uses SQL Server. For web applications like a regular website or WordPress website, those are MySQL, right? And in terms of what I think of Postgres, it's a great open source database in terms of getting training for the database side of it. In terms of the administration, there's not a lot of training, but it's pretty similar to managing an Oracle database. Once you're good with Oracle, you can transfer the skills to Postgres.
Okay. All right. Um, which database management system, like, would you rank as like one of the most difficult ones to set up and utilize? For me, that is SQL Server. There's so many unnecessary complexity to set up in the cloud. But for you, what do you think is like the difficult one to set up and manage?
Oracle without a doubt.
Yeah, yeah. All
So
right.
what question for you? Why do you say SQL Server is the most difficult?
Well, I mean, because some of it requires some Windows um installation, some .NET as well as Windows I don't remember what they call it, installation. So because of that, Windows on I'm generally not a fan of Windows Server. So that's the first thing. I'm more of a Linux server, and to set up SQL Server on Linux is it's a lot of pain because of
It's gonna be work.
extensions and so forth.
So the reason why I say Oracle is more difficult because now you're on the Linux side, Oracle might come easier to you
Yeah.
because a novice now or a new DBA can install a SQL server on a Windows, but it's gonna be a little bit more challenging on the Linux side.
Yeah. So that's the thing. But nowadays I'm using Docker to solve the whole setting up process. All right. And I guess the other question that I had was on the security side, the does DBA and the database security or that's like some other field? And if the security is a part of your responsibility and role, what does like that process look like for you?
In terms of
Security.
securing right, in
Yeah.
terms of securing a database, we'd focus on like the auditing side and who has access to our database or this database server. So if it's a managed server, then who have access to the database. If it's non-managed like a standalone, then who have access to the server and to the database.
Okay. What about like for example, scanning ports, checking that like it's configured properly and so forth. Because with a lot of open source application, a lot of time people would just developers would just set up a database, set up the application with the base configuration and don't think about how to optimize it, how to secure it, ensure that it's only the database is only accessible from like the local network and not the public, or even change the default ports. That's a part of what you would do, correct?
No, but I believe it boils down to the organization that you work in. Because like I have the capability and understanding to do some of it, but normally I work with security guys and system administrators who would
Yeah.
normally take care of that aspect of security. In terms of opening port, closing port, that would be system administrator. In terms of like public, that would definitely be from a security team.
Okay. All right. Noted. All right. So if there's any other question, you can leave it in chat. Otherwise, we can wrap up. So any other question going once, twice, thrice? Okay. Wait, I might join late. Oh, you joined late. Okay. Do you have any additional question, Andrew, Kelly? Okay. What is your daily routine as a DBA?
Daily routine, great question. Sorry. Daily routine, definitely check emails to see what happened last night because you didn't get a phone call that a server was down. So you check what happened, and then if there are user issues, then you resolve those on the fly. If you have project working on, then you pick up your projects. It doesn't really get complicated unless you have like a serious outage for most part. And to add to the presentation though, you have to continuously learn, improve your skills. And I believe that once, I believe that a person who stops learning, they are whole. Like you may have a degree, right? But what did you learn on top of that degree when you graduated? It's a never ending process where you have to continuously learn those skills, even though you don't have to do the certifications, right? But you do additional courses to get the skills. For example, when my farm organization was moving to the cloud, I've never used like AWS before, but I already had the skills because I took score courses on AWS. I know how to migrate a database to the AWS platform. So you have to continuously learn so you don't get left behind on new technologies. Any more questions before we wrap?
Okay, I guess not. So with that said, thank you very much, everyone. Jada, I'm going to ask you to close off, and then we can call it tonight.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Morrison, for that presentation. It was greatly appreciated. Thank you for everyone for coming out this evening. Thank you for all your questions. We do appreciate it. We want to encourage you guys to email us at community@caribbean.dev or message us on our social media. I'm posting all that I just said in the chat right now, so you guys can reach out to us by our email or also our social media handles: LinkedIn at Jamaica Developers Community, Facebook Jamaica Developers Community, and Instagram at JamDevCo. Also, we want to once again shout out our sponsors, which are Asub Limited, Vertis Technology Solutions Limited, and Particular Presence Technologies Limited. Thank you guys again for coming out. Please be sure to attend our future events. Our next event coming up is our demo day, which is scheduled for the 6th of September at 6 p.m. And that will be sent out to you guys so that you all will be in attendance for that. We do look forward to seeing everyone there. Once again, thank you, Mr. Morrison. Once again, thank you everyone for coming out. And you all have a great evening. Thanks again.
Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome. And as Oshin just posted in the chat, you'll be able to find the recording of this presentation on our YouTube page at the link that he just posted in the chat. Thank you guys for coming out.